Hi y'all, welcome to Soupkast, live from Tim's place in Monterey, California. It's the U.S. Grand Prix weekend.
Is this where I clap?
Welcome to the surface of Superbike Planet.
The SuperbikePlanet.com podcast, Soupkast, is brought to you by American Honda.
Hi, and welcome to Superbike Planet's podcast, lovingly referred to as Soupkast. This is Soupkast 7 for July 20th, 2006. We come to you from fairly close to Laguna Raceway. We spent the day today at the racetrack. In today's Soupkast, we will discuss several topics related to the U.S. Grand Prix. With me is Evan Williams from Superbike Planet. Evan, I guess my first comment of the day is, it's going to be a pretty good weekend when the road into the racetrack is actually better than most of the racetracks the series travels to.
Oof. Oh, yeah.
Very true.
Those tracks will be, those shall remain nameless.
Those tracks we won't talk about. Evan, you got some pretty exciting news that you learned today at the racetrack a couple hours ago. Why don't you fire away?
All right. Looking at my watch, it should be official now. Ben Spies is signing a letter of intent to race 2 more seasons with Yoshimura Suzuki. It's been kind of a long process of what Spies is going to do over the course of the first part of this year, and he's going to re-sign. He's back.
He's back. Takes him off the market for next season and probably the season after that. You think we're going to see a lot of rider signings in the next few months, or what do you think?
Yeah, I think everything falls in place off this, but the first thing that comes to mind with the Spies remaining with Suzuki is that there's, once again, a guy who's winning races and a factor in the championship stays with Suzuki rather than getting poached by another manufacturer. Suzuki evidently is doing something right, and the other guys are doing something wrong.
I guess that's one way of looking at it. Either that, or maybe Suzuki was ready to pay him more money than anyone else. I guess there's a number of different ways to look at it.
Sure.
Other news of the day. The rumor at the track was there were customs problems for the Usgp teams coming in that the story was unconfirmed, that 2 planes left Europe full of gear, and one of them landed here in California while the other one ran into some sort of trouble and ended up landing in Canada, and it remains there, is the story in the pit lane, although you can never... It's an entertaining story if it's not true.
Or not.
Yeah, or not. It's really, I think, scenes of the 1989 USGP, when I think that's the one where we had to go Japan, Australia, the U.S. in 3 weekends, and the U.S. was the 3rd weekend, and it was pretty much a debacle on Thursday and Friday of the event, with crates coming in on the back of trucks from the airport, and it was really a disaster. So hopefully that's not the case. Seen a lot of GP bikes out today at the racetrack, mechanics working on them. Saw a lot of riders, so I don't foresee it being an enormous problem. Hope not.
Well, you checked the bag. Did you get your bag in off the flight?
I did, and I flew down here. Interestingly enough, I looked around on the airplane. I did Minneapolis to San Jose, and the plane was littered with, some people call them Buelltologists, but I would never do that. But there were a lot of Buell employees on the plane. They must have went Milwaukee, Minneapolis, San Jose, and man, they were all wearing their colors in the airport and sitting together and looking over the schedule, and they were reading the cycle news, and I mean they were geared up for this. I guess I didn't know, but I guess Buell is racing that clearly illegal motorcycle this weekend at Laguna. So from an American standpoint, I hope that thing is much more competitive than it was in the past. For an American to come to an American race like this and see what is an American bike, frankly, get its ass waxed is not something I'm looking forward to.
That's the way to run it up the flagpole, Dean.
Absolutely. You've got something you want to talk about. 2 worlds collide. We've got both AMA and MotoGP at Laguna Seca, and you were able to walk around this afternoon and make some observations. So, yeah. Evan, please tell.
Well, it's very interesting how different the AMA scene and the MotoGP scene are. here in the AMA scene, from the media perspective anyway, we're closely tied in with the events, I guess you could say. A writer can call up Matt Mladen or a team manager or something and talk to him, and get a good feel for the situation immediately. We got a relationship, one that goes back a few years, whereas the MotoGP scene is totally insulated. The major players are surrounded by layers of PR people. Yeah. I guess a great example of the difference between the two worlds is today we're standing in Starbucks and we call up Matt Mladen and ask him about something. And later on in the afternoon, for a magazine, I was doing a story and I talked to a MotoGP mechanic, and they had to have a PR person there taking notes on our conversation just in case I wrote something they didn't like. Now, it's nothing against the people. That's just the way they do things, and it's a very different world than what we've got over here.
Much more official and much less friendly. Welcome to Grand Prix, everyone. Anything else about the two worlds colliding, which I wouldn't really want to see, but...
Yeah, well, I guess, there's a little bit of bitching in the AMA paddock. We don't only have a lot of testing practice time for Superbike this weekend. We got a session first thing Friday morning, qualifying Saturday around lunch in the race.
Right, and I think what you're saying is the AMA guys don't have enough track time, they feel, to the Superbike guys to mount the effort that they want to, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I guess, Superbike guys are the big fish usually, and this weekend they're not.
Well, I mean, it's...
That's just reality.
I guess it's reality, and... Sad to see in some respects, but Laguna's, in their defense, Laguna's standpoint was that they wanted to have as many classes as possible this weekend. I think promoters are of the mind that if there's dead track time on a race day, then people leave or don't buy things or something. I don't think that's based in reality, but it's definitely the attitude of many promoters that I've talked to, that they pretty much want bikes circulating constantly throughout the day for whatever reason. I'm not sure what's that based in, but that's their opinion, I think.
A cynic could also say that the Formula Extreme race was added late, and Red Bull and Yamaha sponsored the race, and also Eric Bostrom.
Oh yeah, I never thought of that. That's a good point. Next topic, let's go to traction control, which was legalized this week by the AMA. Evan, why don't you give a little bit of background on the situation? Yeah,
what the AMA has done is basically said Superbike and Formula Extreme teams can do whatever they want, and that the Super Sport and Super Stock teams can't add sensors, but they can do whatever they want. And what that really effectively means is that the traction control situation in the AMA is out in the open now.
I think from my perspective, what attracted me to AMA racing and this kind of traction control may signal the end of an era, in that what attracted me to AMA racing was both the bikes and the riders and the way that they were being ridden. The bikes were being ridden by those riders, very aggressive, very dirt track style. That really sucked me into racing. I'm very concerned that we're going to have two-wheeled car racing. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think without a doubt that traction control takes away some of the danger and some of the romance and allure of racing. I think that is definitely a side of it that has its advantages. I think safety is an important concern as well. I think that the level of traction control is right now, we're not to the point where you're going around with it throttle pinned all the time. I think what we really got now is they're taking away some of the big slides and some of the the high side type things, but you still have a lot of spinning going on. And I think we're still at the era where the man counts. You can look at the Yoshimura Suzuki team. It's widely rumored that those three bikes have had traction control since 2003. Yet you see two guys up front and one guy struggling. So if traction control had that much of a bearing, I think you might see all three of them out front right now.
And I think one thing from a global observational standpoint, maybe this is a good thing, in that the riding style that maybe needs to be adopted to ride a traction control bike is the same as a MotoGP bike that a rider would use to ride a MotoGP bike and a World Superbike machine. So,
sure,
I think we can establish that Nicky Hayden has been struggling to a degree trying to adapt his dirt track riding style to the current MotoGP riding style, which is 250s. So perhaps the AMA series adopting traction control and legalizing it in Formula Extreme and Superbike means that American riders who exit the series and go MotoGP will have a bit easier time, possibly.
Yes, I agree with that. And for me, what was most interesting was not that they opened it up in Superbike and Formula Extreme, but they're tacitly allowing it in Superstock and Supersport.
I didn't expect that. I was very surprised to learn that when I saw the release.
Yeah.
Because I just was totally against it in Superbike, quite frankly, and I thought there was no way a thinking organization would allow it in Superstock. And I thought the statement that was in the AMA press release saying that traction control is on street bikes is imminent or something along those lines, I think that's they're dreaming there. I mean, okay, you've got a degree of traction control now in that they're adjusting ignition, timing, and things like that on 1,000cc street bikes, on all the street bikes really, for better tractability. But the traction control with sensors and things like that, I really don't see that happening on sport bikes anytime soon. I hope I'm wrong, but I think the liability and technical end of it at the dealership level is going to make it very difficult to adopt in a street bike.
Yeah, what they've done is they've figured out how to make a system that skirted the rules and used just the they MacGyvered a system is what they did without front wheel speed sensors. It uses the acceleration rates. They know how fast it can accelerate if the tire's hooked up, and that's kind of what they're basing all this on. If you can do that, then the Supersport and Superstock guys are going to quickly add that to the factory bikes, in my opinion. So, what next?
So, what now? I mean, what's the current status of traction control in the paddock? I would be very surprised to learn that Ducati isn't using traction control now, because I think they've clearly shown and partially admitted they're using traction control in World Superbike. And I don't see it being too difficult to fit those items on their AMA bike and use it here. I mean, I'd be very surprised if they're not using it this weekend here at Laguna Seca.
Well, there's published reports saying that they have it exists, and that the AMA team has access to it if only the rules would allow. So I think it'd be pretty safe to say that that's something they'd be using if they could.
Let's go team by team and discuss whether we think they're using traction control. How's that so?
Sounds fine to me.
Start with Suzuki, six-time champion Matt Mladen, Ben Spies, and Aaron Yates. Using traction control or not? What do you think?
Well, it's my opinion that they have a crude but effective traction control system on their bikes and have for a while. It's my opinion.
I would tend to agree with that. Team Honda, Miguel Duhamel and Jake Zemke.
It's widely rumored that they're less than happy with the system that's available to them, that they don't quite have it dialed in yet. And if they are using it, if they do have access to it, they don't really like it.
And see, Ducati, we've thought they're probably using it here this weekend. Do you think they've used it previously?
As, again, widely rumored that their system requires a front wheel sensor, and that's a real no-no in AMA race weekend competition. You can test with it, you can't race with it.
I think they've tested it. I think a lot of the teams run when they use a private test at Mid-Ohio or Virginia or something like that, where they don't have to abide by the AMA rulebook. For a variety of reasons, they'll use a front wheel speed sensor on the bikes. So yeah. I think you can probably go to bed tonight confident and comfortable in the fact that Ducati has probably tested traction control here in the U.S., but not used it on a race weekend at all.
Yeah, teams often use those front wheel sensors at tests just to compile more data about the bike.
Team Kawasaki, I would say, again, like Honda, maybe they have something available to them, but they are less than happy with it. Your thoughts?
I agree.
And who did we leave out?
That's got them all.
How about in the FX class? It's been widely rumored. Well, some background information. Ducati's data acquisition man for the last several years here in the U.S. left the Ducati team in the off-season, and he joined Team Yamaha. And he's doing data acquisition on the Yamaha FX bikes. In fact, on any bike they can run it on. So it's been widely rumored and somewhat supported that Yamaha's been using some form of traction control, or as it's known in the press room by some, what do they call it? Engine management.
Engine management, acceleration management.
Acceleration management. It's not It's not traction control.
Yeah.
It's acceleration management.
Well, when Vito went over to Yamaha this year, and he, of course, is familiar with the Magneti Marelli engine control system, same as Ducati uses, same as Ferrari uses in Formula One. And you'd have to put two and two together and believe that they have something going on in that department.
Let's switch subjects to riders who we feel need to have a good weekend here at Laguna Seca for the USGP in either class. I would top that list with Yamaha's Jason DeSalvo, who is going to leave Monday to do the Suzuka 8-hour and is embroiled in a battle in the FX Championship for the championship with Eric Bostrom. I think Jason DeSalvo desperately needs to have a good race here at Laguna Seca or very soon to maybe save his season. What do you think?
I agree with that 100%. Bostrom and Josh Hayes on the Arian bike in the Formula Extreme class have given him all he's wanted and a little more.
Right.
And those guys are really fine racers, great professionals. But if DeSalvo wants to be riding a MotoGP bike or World Superbike or something like that, he needs to take care of these guys.
I think he definitely needs, if he's going to be an AMA Superbike next year, he needs to beat Eric Bostrom for the championship, period.
Yeah.
Because, earlier in the season, it was a foregone conclusion that Jason was going to beat everyone for the FX championship. And the current situation is Jason's had some really bad races. I think probably three race weekends in a row, and been defeated by Eric Bostrom. And if he can't beat Eric Bostrom, then you got to be wondering, does he deserve a Superbike ride?
Oh, sure. One rumor that's going around is that Yamaha is coming back to Superbike next year, and they'll run two of the three guys in the Superbike class. The guy not getting the Superbike ride right now, it's rumored, is Jamie Hacking, who's leading the Supersport and Superstock championships.
Yeah, I've heard that rumor as well, and it doesn't sit very well with me. In that, I think Jason's definitely capable of performing, and I think he realizes the situation now, and he needs to make some things happen. Period, in order to get the Superbike ride and justify the Superbike ride.
I agree 100%.
Another Colin Edwards is another guy that needs to have a good weekend here at Laguna. He's had a very bad 2006, other than leading at Assen, and then the last lap debacle, which left him on the ground, and I think finishing something like 15th or something like that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that that win would have gone a long way to solidifying his plans next year. He didn't get it, and he needs to come up with something here.
Definitely. Anyone else? What do you think?
We've got both the Ducati AMA Superbike guys, I think, need to have a big weekend.
Yeah, Ducati period needs to have a big weekend here. Ducati MotoGP or Ducati Parts Unlimited Ducati. You've got Jimmer now, who's riding injured. Caparossi riding injured. Neil Hodgson had a borderline at best 2006, and you got Ben Bostrom again, not really showing much here in 2006, and ending up on his ear at the last race at Utah.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think the last race was a positive for Bostrom because he had been mired down there in 6th, 7th, 8th place. But he at least got up to a podium contention. It's no secret that Ducati's plans for next year aren't finalized, and I think the boys over here need to put in some good results to make sure Ducati continues onward in AMA Superbike.
Right, I agree. Some people are of the opinion that this is a weekend that Nicky Hayden needs to have a big weekend. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm one of those. I think he needs to have a big weekend because this is, for better or worse, Nicky's home track and the race he won last year. I think even though he has a points lead that's insurmountable this weekend, he's leading Rossi by 26, that I think he still needs to put together a win here, if at all possible.
I would tend to agree with that, but I would hope that Nick takes more of a big picture view of the weekend and realize that 10 years from now, the majority of the people aren't going to remember who won the USGP, but they're probably going to be able to remember who won the World Championship. He needs to finish well into the points. Doesn't need to win, in my opinion, and hope he realizes that.
Yeah. Well, he can't win the championship here, but he could lose it here.
Exactly. Good way of putting it. Okay, with that, we're going to close this podcast, this Soupkast number 7 for July 20th. We hope to do another podcast tomorrow night and upload it into iTunes. So if you're subscribed, then you will be downloading us soon. And we've got to go to the... where are we going anyway?
We're going to the Desmo Sedici road bike intro.
At Laguna,
At
right?
Laguna, yes.
We're leaving in about 5 minutes, so we will bid you farewell. And
Or ciao, as they say in
ciao, as they say in Italian. Ciao, ciao.
Soupkast is brought to you by American Honda.